Before I start my talk today, I want to say that postmaterialism is not only reflected in specific issue stances, for example, environmentalism and sexual minority problems. We could also find postmaterialism in a probably even more accurate manner from our daily interactions with the people around us. Therefore, according to my literature review, I find that many of the survey research about postmaterialism, and especially in East Asia, they focus on the question components that surround our daily lives, rather than about our political beliefs or political stances. And specifically, those relationships include the ones between parents and their children, as well as teachers and their students. And I also find that there is a strong degree of overlap between libertarian, emancipative, self-expression, and post-materialist research. And sometimes different researchers, they tend to call the same thing different names, or they tend to give different definitions to the same thing. So in my presentation today, I will be basically talking about a selected set of research that talks about post-materialism, self-expression, and emancipative values. Since my specialization is comparative politics of East Asia, so specifically, I will be choosing cases about East Asian countries. So on this slide, we show a research conducted by Walzo. So by using world values survey, he tries to answer a very simple question. Is East Asia different in developing its post-materialist and emancipative values? So what Walzo shows in his research is that Asia is not so different in terms of moving toward post-materialist values and emancipative values. And similar to Western societies, some strong indicators can also be found in the development paths of Asian countries, such as education level and democratic degree. So in graphs A and B, we do observe a strong positive relationship between the degree of education or the state of knowledge development with the emancipative values in the societies represented by dots. And for graph B, we do observe that for the citizens as individuals, they show more tendency toward post-materialism if they receive more higher education. So the graphs A and B here basically show the relationship between emancipative values and effective democracy and perception of democracy. So here we clearly see a positive relationship, and we can generalize that when emancipative values increase, we do have a more desire for democracy, and we do observe in reality societies transform into more democratic forms. So now let's take a look at the table, which I took from a research that I found. So basically, it compares the values of child rearing between China and America. This could be a little bit of a shock to some people because this table basically shows that Chinese and American people, they see the important qualities for their children or their future children as very similar. We normally think that the Western societies, they are deeply rooted in individualism and expression values, and Asian societies, they focus more on collectivism or groupism and so on. If we continue from this logic, we would think that actually Asian societies, they have quite different sets of qualities that the people see as important to be found in their children. Even though most of the qualities they value are similar, we still can find some dissimilarities between the two societies. And one important outlier is the independence value. It's also quite shocking to find that actually most of the people in China, they find independence as very important, whereas only half of the people in America find independence as important for their children. One way of explaining this result is that probably in the wave 5 of the WVS, the World Values Survey, probably the respondents in the Chinese society, they feel that it is really important for their children to be very independent work hard so that they could achieve their own objectives, goals, and lead a good life. And they might also feel that the level of their life's happiness, satisfaction, or well being should not really depend on the government help. And I also find this research online, which compares post-materialism and social class and income in China. So basically, this shows that populations with a higher social class, they do not have a more orientation toward post-materialist values. And also, in provinces where there is a high degree of equality, the people there tend to have more post-materialist orientations. It probably implies that when a region is more equal or more even in terms of income and wealth distribution, the population in that region tend to care less about materialist stuff. So this cross-sectional research compares the situations of post-materialism between China and Taiwan. So the good point about this research from my perspective is that it breaks down post-materialism into different elements and perspectives so that we can have a more detailed or more accurate comparison between the two societies. So similar to the case of child rearing between China and America, for Taiwan and China, we find similarities, but there are also a degree of differences. In China, the post-materialists, they focus more on having a say on the job they are undertaking. However, they don't care too much about beautiful cities and environmental issues. And also, in China, they tend to care more about the say in the government. One way of explaining the reason why that the respondents tend to have a higher desire for having a say in the government is probably that they currently do not have enough access or they only have limited access and channels to voice their opinions to the authorities in China and to connect with local politics. Another shocking conclusion from this research is that actually in China, post-materialism is positively associated with people's desire for a strong defense force, whereas in Taiwan it's the opposite, which is the normal case. And for the rest of the elements, such as freedom of speech, lasting personal society, and ideas calm, obviously Taiwan shows a greater tendency.